Hi, this is Joshua Walker. My project is on Walter Johnson Middle School Media Center. The school is located in Morganton, North Carolina, which is in Burke County in the western part of the state, about an hour and a half west of Charlotte. After analyzing my data, I pulled out the most relevant pieces of information and present those here in my infographic. On the left will be the community data, and on the right will be the state data. The community is Morganton, North Carolina. We'll begin with the age distribution. Here you can see that the community data largely aligns with the state data, the exception being those 65 years or older. In the community, 20% of the residents are 65 years or older, while in the state, under 17% of the residents are 65 years or older. Over the last 2 decades, Morganton has prioritized incentives that attract retirees. This largely accounts for the difference observed. Next is the ethnicity data, which is the most significant information for my project. This data really tells the story of the demographic shifts that Morganton has undergone in the last few decades. As we look at the data, we can see that the community data aligns with the state data in many aspects. Approximately 65% of the community residents are white, a little under 10% are black, and under 5% are Asian. However, the departure from the state data is significant. I would like to draw your attention to one such deviation in particular, and that is the Hispanic population. In Morganton, the Hispanic population is approximately 20%, compared to the state, which is about 10%. The school, too, reflects this demographic. At the school itself, over 50% of the students are Hispanic. And as I stated previously, this data really tells the story of a very significant demographic shift that has happened in Morganton over the last few decades. If you were to go back to the early to mid 90s, this data would look significantly different. Morganton's data would be closer to the state percentage, if not dramatically less than that percentage. Why is this? Well, in the surrounding areas of Morganton, there are numerous poultry farms. Within Morganton itself, there's a poultry processing plant called Case Farms. The plant has been there for about 70 years. In the early to mid 90s, the plant started recruiting immigrants to work in the factory. These immigrants were primarily Guatemalan. It was this event specifically that led to the dramatic demographic shift, and this demographic shift will have profound impacts on the school and its planning. Now, moving down to population growth. While the immigrant population increased dramatically, the overall population grew very slowly, as we can see here. Morganton's growth rate was 3.2% compared to the state growth rate of 9.4%. This data and the data that follows tells another very important story about the Morganton community. Morganton grew and developed in tandem with the textile and furniture industries. As those industries grew rapidly throughout the last century, so did Morganton up through the 1970s. Beginning in the 1980s, however, those jobs were increasingly offshored. This led to economic stagnation and limited opportunities within the community itself. Many people left to pursue opportunities elsewhere, and this could be seen in the slow growth rate. Moving down to the economic and education data, we can see the continuation of this story and its significant impact on the community. The median household income in Morganton is $42,000, compared to the state median income of $54,000. This is a direct result of the decline in the industrial base upon which Morganton was built. As those jobs left, low-paying service jobs remained. As might be expected, the decrease in income led to an increase in the poverty rate. Morganton's poverty rate is 25%, 1 out of every 4 people, compared to the state rate of 13%. Moving to the education section, again, this data departs significantly from the state data. In Morganton, only 77% of the population has completed high school, while 23% has completed a 4-year degree. That compares to state data where 88% have completed high school and 31% have a 4-year degree. This data, too, derives from the industrial base upon which Morganton was built. When the textile and furniture industries were thriving, it was common for people to leave school and go directly into the workforce. The older population has driven down the high school data we see here of 77%. But even today, it is not uncommon for students to graduate high school and go directly into the workforce without any college or training. This, I believe, is a cultural impact. If your parents did not pursue postgraduate training or college, and your grandparents did not pursue that course either, then you are more likely to do the same. Finally, I've included school data to show that the school data aligns with the community data. Here we see the school ethnicity data. Remember, the community data was a little under 25% Hispanic, which was far greater than the state percentage. Well, the school data is even greater than the community data. The school has 55% Hispanic population and 32% white. As we move down, we will see the data concerning the percentage of students coming from an economically disadvantaged home. 85% of the students at Walter Johnson Middle School come from an economically disadvantaged home compared to the state percentage of 43.4%. Again, this aligns with the community data where 25% of the families lived in poverty. As referenced above, this arises from Morganton's industrial base that disappeared as jobs were offshored. So that is the community data, and the actualities that underlie the data have had a profound impact on the school itself. As I mentioned previously, the school has more than 50% Hispanic population. It is also a Title I school, and a majority of the students come from an impoverished background. These actualities need to be reflected in the school's media center and in its collection. From my preliminary research, these actualities are not reflected. The school has a very small Spanish language section consisting of approximately 100 books. Further, these books do not align to the interests of middle schoolers. The majority of the Spanish language collection appeals to a younger age. There needs to be more books that appeal to a typical middle schooler, perhaps Spanish language versions of Harry Potter, Twilight, and other popular fiction titles. The most popular books in the library are graphic novels. However, there are no Spanish language versions of any graphic novel. This, of course, is not only a collection issue, but also a funding issue. The library receives limited funding. This data must be presented to the appropriate administrators to allow funding for a larger Spanish language collection. Community outreach efforts might also find additional sources for funds. Many Hispanic-owned businesses are in the community to cater to the growing Hispanic population. These owners perhaps could be a source of additional funds and resources. As mentioned above, this is also a Title I school, and a vast majority of the students come from an impoverished background. This too must be reflected in the collection. The students are exposed to few books in their home environment, and low reading scores reflect this. The students therefore depend greatly on the school collection. This collection must offer books on a wide range of reading levels. There must be books on the independent reading levels of students from middle elementary all the way through high school. In addition, since the library is the only source of books for most students, there must be several copies of the most popular novels. As it stands, the most popular novels are frequently checked out, and students request them daily.